Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of the American Civil War with your host Bang and Dang, and continuing on the 7 days battles as we've been on the last couple episodes. And just like the last time, last week where Jackson was screwing up and being a piece of shit, guess what? It's no different than these ones either today, because we got 3 more battles from the 7 days battles, plus one randomly thrown in Tampa Bay for some reason. So, yeah. And McClellan continues to be a moron. So, you know what didn't even realize at this point is McClellan is not even the commanding general no more. He was relieved of that duty in March because him and Lincoln hate each other.
you think so?
And there is none at this moment until Halleck gets appointed in like September. And then McClellan gets completely removed in September and then faces Lincoln in the 1864 election. He was the Democratic nominee.
She's a Democrat.
And he lost 212 to 21. With that being said, we got the Battle of Garnett and Goldings Farm, and then Savage's Station, and then we randomly go to Tampa for a minute, and then back to Glendale, all in Virginia, besides the Tampa one, obviously, and all part of the 7 days battles. First up, Battle of Garnett's and Goldings Farm takes place 27th and 28th of June in Henrico County. It's part of the 7 days battles, obviously, while the Battle of Gaines Mill raged north of the Chickahominy. The forces of Confederate General John B. Magruder conducted a reconnaissance. A reconnaissance in force that developed into a minor attack against the Union line south of the river at Garnett's farm. James N. Garnett's farm near Old Tavern was situated on the edge of the bluffs at the banks of the Chickahominy. Near the Garnett farm was Goldings Plain, belonging to Simon Golden, spelled differently, don't know why. Between the two farms was a ravine, a creek, and a hill named Garnett's Hill. Okay. Union soldiers from Brigadier General William T. H. Brooks's brigade of William F. Baldy Smith's 2nd Division of the 6th Corps began placing artillery pieces on Garnett's Hill the night before the battle. This activity was resumed by Brigadier General Winfield Scott Hancock's brigade of the same corps the following morning on June 27th. 6 batteries of reserve artillery were placed.
Oh.
Good for them.
Right. Well, while the Federals were at work, Federal soldiers of Major General David R. Jones's division began taking up positions in the area. Look at that shit. What was the Federals working on? Or they're just working?
They were working on doing the artillery pieces.
Brigadier General Robert Toombs.
Robert Toombs. Isn't there somebody named Toombs?
I think so.
Roddy Piper?
Toombs' brigade positioned himself at the west side of the ravine, while Colonel George T. Anderson's brigade took up a position northwest of the area, less than a mile from the Garnett house. Anderson's and Toombs' artillerists were ordered to fire upon Union soldiers whenever the opportunity presented itself. It's like,
see them, you fire.
Open range, boys. The Federals, now preparing for a general engagement, were told to avoid a clash with the Confederates if possible. So you got two.
Like, we're not ready yet.
Right. The result was a brisk shelling that lasted an hour and ended in a Confederate withdrawal.
We can't do nothing about this.
They're like, dude, we're not even trying to fight you guys.
Right. You just wasted all your artillery shells.
The Union's 23 well-positioned guns withstood the Confederates' 10 guns, which were situated in an open field. Like
idiots. Later, some of Major General Lafayette McLaw's men advanced towards the Union line at the Garnett farm at about 4 p.m., but withdrew after 10 minutes under heavy fire. There was a lull in the subsequent hours, ending with Toombs' attacks on the Union line at about 7 p.m. Toombs was ordered to reconnoiter or feel out the enemy. Instead, he engaged the Federals in a sharp and sustained fight. After nightfall, Toombs' advance was repelled by Winfield Hancock's brigade after about an hour and a half of fighting. Confederates suffered some 271 casualties during the day's conflict. The action at Garnett Farm accomplished little.
That's so stupid.
Obviously.
The dumbest shit. And let's put your artillery in the middle of the freaking field.
Mm-hmm. How's this war still going?
Just wasting like bullets at each other and nothing's getting accomplished. It's so stupid. I don't get it. Fire at will. You got a bunch of idiots out there just firing away.
They're literally firing at will.
Jeez. All right. The following day, 28th June, 1862. Union and Confederate soldiers clashed again near the Golding house. Jones suspected that the Federals near the house were withdrawing and authorized Toombs to perform a reconnaissance in force to ascertain whether if they were actually withdrawing or not.
Right.
I mean, what are you going to do? You got to go check that shit out.
Yeah. And if you have to, use force.
However, Toombs turned the reconnaissance operation into a full engagement.
He's like, fuck this.
And advanced with some of Anderson's men before he could be countermanded. The Confederates had already been repulsed by the 6th Corps.
Mm-hmm.
In the 2 days of fighting at the Garnett and Golding farms, the Confederates suffered 438 casualties, while the Confederates suffered 189. Now shit's flipping around. Usually it was the Union.
While the Union was losing more, but winning.
Right, and they're losing less than winning.
I don't know, what's up with that?
Anderson's men, who bore the brunt of the Federal counterattack, suffered 156 casualties on the 2nd day of fighting. This battle accomplished little to nothing, but helped to convince McClellan that he was being attacked from both sides of the Chickahominy. I guess.
Whatever, dude. McClellan's a moron. On the evening of June 28th, McClellan convened a meeting with his generals. He announced that he was willing to pursue an attack on Richmond, but such an attack could spell the defeat and destruction of the Army of the Potomac. The result of the meeting was that the Federals would begin a retreat. The commanding general announced to us his purpose to begin a movement to the James River on the next day, said noted Union General William B. Franklin. McClellan's decision to withdraw the James set the stage for the subsequent Battle of Savage's Station, which we will have coming up right now.
So McClellan's going back and he regrouping.
Well, he's retreating.
He's going back.
He's retreating.
He ain't getting his ass kicked.
He's getting his ass kicked.
No.
Getting his ass kicked.
If anything, Union won more than battles so far.
Well, Union hasn't won any battle of the 7 days battle so far.
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
It won like 2 or 3 or 4.
No. All of them were inconclusive except for the one the Confederates won last episode.
Inconclusive, which means the Union won. They just won that little skirmish.
Did they, though?
They did.
Nobody won.
The Battle of Savage Station took place on 29th of June, 1862, in Henrico County, Virginia, as the 4th of the 7 days battles. The Army of the Potomac continued to retreat towards James River.
Mm-hmm.
The bulk of McClellan's army concentrated around Savage Station and Richmond and York Railroad, preparing for a difficult crossing through and around White Oak Swamp. It did so without centralized direction because McClellan had personally moved south of Malvern Hill after Gaines Mill, which you guys should remember that. If not, go check it out.
Well, Malvern Hill is going to be the last of the 7 days battles, and that's another class A.
Gaines Mill.
Gaines Mill is the one we did, yeah. Right.
And when he moved, he didn't leave any directions for corps movements
because
during the retreat.
He's a fucking moron.
Nor naming a second in command.
Because he's a moron.
Clouds of black smoke filled the air as the Union troops were ordered to burn anything they could not carry. Union morale plummeted, particularly for those who were wounded. Makes sense.
Right.
Who realized that they were not being evacuated from Savage's Station with the rest of the army. They were not being?
They're not being evacuated, dude.
They're staying there?
Guess so.
Oh, wow.
Become prisoners of war. Lee devised a complex plan to pursue and destroy McClellan's army. He said, this is it for McClellan.
Right.
While the divisions of Major General James Longstreet and A.P. Hill looped back towards Richmond and then southeast to the crossroads at Glendale, Major General Theophilus H. Holmes' division headed further south to the vicinity of Malvern Hill. Brigadier General John B. Magruder's division was ordered to move east along the Williamsburg Road and the York River Railroad to attack the Federal rear. Stonewall Jackson, who's an idiot so far, commanding his own division as well as divisions of General D.H. Hill and Brigadier General William H.C. Whiting, was to rebuild a bridge over the Chickahominy and head due south to Savage's Station, where he would link up with Magruder and deliver a strong blow that might cause the Union Army to turn around and fight during its retreat. Well, maybe if only that would happen, and Jackson's not a piece of shit.
Right. Well, I mean, what do you expect, right?
Well, Jackson not to be a piece of shit.
Well, he figures that out in the woods. McClellan's rear guard at Savage Station consisted of 2nd Corps, commanded by the General Edwin B. Sumner. He had 2 divisions. The 3rd Corps under Brigadier General Samuel P. Heitzelman, 2 divisions under him. The 6th Corps under Brigadier General William B. Franklin. He had just had this one. McClellan considered the senior corps commander, Sumner, to be competent. He's like, you are incompetent. So he appointed no one to command the rear guard. He's like, there's nobody that can do it.
Hey, I consider you incompetent, but I'm going to still have you lead in 2 divisions. I mean, because that's how stupid McClellan is, apparently. Initial contact between the armies occurred at 9 a.m. on June 29th on the farm and orchards owned by a Mr. Allen.
So the most important, one of the most important spots you should have a good leader is in the rear. You're moving an army, you want somebody good up front and somebody great in the rear. In the middle, you can have all your Sumners and Heitzelmans.
He appointed no one to command the rear guard.
Because he's a moron. Should have been some I don't know how any of these guys even fought a war for 5 years, or how.
I don't know, man.
North
4
won.
years. On the farm and orchards owned by Mr. Allen, about 2 miles west of Savage's Station, 2 Georgia regiments from the brigade of Brigadier General George T. Anderson fought against 2 Pennsylvania regiments from Sumner's Corps for about 2 hours before disengaging, suffering 28 casualties to the Pennsylvanians' 119.
Okay.
The highest ranking casualty was Confederate Brigadier General Richard Griffith, who was mortally wounded by a Union shell fragment.
Jeez.
Magruder, who was alleged to be under the influence of morphine,
Of course.
to combat a bout of indigestion, was confused and became concerned that he might be attacked by a superior force.
Oh, jeez.
He requested reinforcements from Lee, who ordered 2 brigades from the division of General Benjamin Huger to assist under the condition that they would have to be returned. He said, if you aren't engaged in battle by 2 p.m., I need these guys back. I need these guys back, man.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Well, meanwhile.
Morphined up on the damn battlefield.
Right. Meanwhile, old Stonewall.
Oh, what was he doing? Not doing something he was fucking told to do.
He was not advancing as Lee had planned. He was taking time to rebuild bridges over the Chickahominy, and he received a garbled order from Lee's chief of staff that made him believe he should stay north of the river and guard the crossings.
How do you get a garbled written... What are they doing?
You think he would have written down, maybe it was raining when he got
How were they
He
communicating?
can barely read it. He was sending a guy out to him.
Yeah, but spoken word, newspapers, mail, written reports, and dispatches, and telegraphs, right?
Yeah, telegraphed.
So how do you get a marble, or I guess telegraph, you could fumble that up if you're not putting it in right?
Something, right?
I mean, but still, I don't understand how garbled fucking you can have, it's just stupid. It's not like he had like a taped message from him, and it's like,
Right. Well, these failures of the Confederate plan were being matched on the Union side.
Of course they were.
So Heitzman decided on his own that his corps did not need to be defending Savage Station because Sumner and Franklin, they can handle the
should
job.
be enough, apparently.
So he decided to follow the rest of the army without informing his fellow generals.
Wow.
He was like, we'll let him get a couple miles and then just follow behind him.
Jeez, how does this happen?
It's like a kid that hides in the trunk of the car or something.
All right, and this dude still serves in the army after doing this stuff. I don't understand.
I don't get it. Magruder, from the rebel side, was forced to give up 2 brigades from Huger's division at 2 p.m. He's like, dang, nobody was here.
All right.
And then he was faced with the problem of attacking Sumner's 26,600 men with his own 14,000 men.
Well, we've seen them take on bigger ones before.
He hesitated until 5 o'clock when he sent only 2.5 brigades forward. If he knew he was going to go into battle, why didn't he hurry up and send a message back to Lee and be like, no, dude, I need these guys. The battle starts at 5. Not 2, bud.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, Brigadier General Joseph B. Kershaw commanded the left flank, Brigadier General Paul J. Semmes the center, and Colonel William Barksdale of Griffith's brigade to the right. Franklin and Brigadier General John Sedgwick of the Union were on a reconnaissance to the west of Savage's Station when they saw Kershaw's brigade approaching.
Uh-oh.
Their immediate assumption was that these were men from Heintzelman's corps, but they soon realized their mistake.
All right.
This was the first indication of Heintzelman's unannounced departure, and Sumner, for one, was particularly outraged, refusing to speak to Heintzelman the next day. So that's all. I'm just not going to speak to you. Union artillery opened fire, and pickets were sent forward to meet the assault. Magruder's attack was accompanied by the first armored railroad battery to be used in combat. Wow.
Oh, okay.
A railroad battery, huh?
Well, earlier that June, General Lee had hoped to counter the approach of McClellan's siege artillery by rail by using his own weapon, a 32-pounder Brooke naval rifle. Wow. Shielded by a sloping casemate of railroad iron, nicknamed the Land Merrimack. Oh, look at that shit. It was pushed by a locomotive at about the speed of a marching infantry.
Wow.
However, even with
seeing that roll down the damn tracks.
Even with the impressive weapon, which outgunned anything the Federal artillerists possessed, the result of Magruder's decision to send only part of his smaller force against a much larger enemy were predictable. The first Union unit to engage was one of Sedgwick's brigades. Philadelphians led by Brigadier General William W. Burns, but his defensive line proved inadequate to cover the 2 brigades of Kershaw and Semmes.
Yeah.
He should have sent in more, man.
Well, not this time. Sumner managed this part of the battle erratically, selecting regiments for combat almost at random.
Oh, jeez.
He sent in 2 of Burns' regiments, and then the 1st Minnesota Infantry from another brigade in Sedgwick's division, and finally 1 regiment each from 2 different brigades in Brigadier General Israel B. Richardson's division. By the time of all these units reached the front, the 2 sides were a rough parity, 2 brigades each.
Oh.
Although Magruder had been conservative about his attack, Sumner was even more so. Of the 26 regiments he had in his corps, only 10 were engaged at Savage's Station.
Wow.
Why? Swear.
Well, the fighting turned into a bloody stalemate as darkness fell. Strong thunderstorms began to move in. The land Merrimack bombarded the Union front, with some of its shells reaching as far as to the rear as the field hospital.
Wow.
Dang. The final actions of the evening were by the Vermont Brigade, commanded by Colonel William T.H. Brooks of the and Brigadier General William F. Baldy Smith's division. Attempting to hold the flanks south of the Williamsburg Road, the Vermonters charged into the woods and were met with murderous fire. Suffering more casualties of any brigade on the field that day.
Oh.
The brigade as a whole took 439 casualties. The 5th Vermont Regiment, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Lewis A. Grant, lost nearly half of its men, 209 of 428.
Oh.
Jeez, oh Pete. What the hell happened there?
Battle was a stalemate at the cost of about 1,500 casualties on both sides, plus 2,500 previously wounded Union soldiers who were left to be captured. Oh, my. When their field hospital was evacuated. That is sad, dude.
All right.
Jackson eventually crossed the river by, he's like, all right, I'll cross the river now. He crossed by about 2:30 a.m. on June 30th, but it was too late to crush the Union Army, as Lee had hoped. Most of the Army of the Potomac crossed White Oak Swamp Creek, unmolested by noon on June 30th. Lee reprimanded Magruder in a dispatch, though, said, I regret much that you have made so little progress today in pursuit of the enemy. In order to reap the fruits of our victory, that pursuit should be most vigorous. We must lose no more time, or he will escape us entirely. However, the fault for the lost opportunity must be shared equally with the poor staff work at Lee's own headquarters and a less than aggressive performance by who?
Yeah.
Jackson.
Yeah.
The 7 days continued with the much larger Battle of Glendale, which we'll have on this episode, and the Battle of White Oak, which we'll have next week. Yeah, Jackson's just proven to be a fucking he's not living up to his Shenandoah Valley image, that's for sure.
Well, maybe he wants to take it slow.
That's not how it works. You do what they're told.
Right.
I wonder, did he even like Lee? Is he doing this shit on purpose?
Well, the Battle of Tampa, also known as Yankee Outrage at Tampa, was a minor engagement on June 30th through the 1st of July, 1862. As we all know, on the 13th of April at 11 a.m., the alarm went up when
I don't think we all know that.
All right. The alarm went up when a Union schooner anchored behind an island 2 miles from Tampa. Confederate pickets were posted on all the roads in town to sound the alarm because it was feared the ship was a decoy. According to the diary of Robert Watson, a member of the Key West Avengers, Captain H. Mulleren's company of Florida Volunteers says, we are of the opinion that the Yankees have landed men below us and came in the schooner to draw our attention while they march up in the rear. Nice. After an hour, the schooner launched a boat under a flag of truce, which was met by 2 Confederate boats.
What are the Federals doing here?
Right.
Federals demanded the surrender of Tampa. According to that's a flag of truce, right? Federals demanded the surrender of Tampa. According to Watson, Major Thomas told him that he would not surrender it. The Yankee officer then gave him 24 hours to take the women and children out of the town, as they would attack the place at the end of that time. Our men gave 3 cheers at the prospect of having a fight, which made the men in the Yankee boat look down in the mouth, as they expected to see us all look frightened and ready to surrender.
Hell yeah.
They're like, about time, man. We're just sitting here doing nothing.
Nothing.
Captain Smith told us all to take all of our clothing and carry them upriver, as the enemy might come too strong for us, and we should have to we should have to retreat. It would be impossible to carry anything with us.
Right.
A strong picket guard on all.
That's smart. I never heard that. Hey,
Move your shit over here just in case.
Move it into the retreat line because you might be able to grab this shit as you're running for your lives. Jeez.
A strong picket guard on all day and night, he says. April 14th, Watson wrote, no sign of the enemy, but there is a bright lookout for them. So they go and launch a boat under the flag of truce,
right.
And then they come up, hey, surrender, or else.
Or else. Knowing damn well nothing's going to happen. By the summer of 1862, plans were in place in Washington to further tighten this blockade by capturing major ports throughout the Confederacy, which they did in New Orleans.
Yep,
that was captured in April. And a lot of towns alongside Mississippi River, we did all that, most notably Vicksburg.
They haven't captured Vicksburg yet, though, so lies.
Yeah, we got to get there. It was common knowledge among the Union's chief military strategists that the sooner the blockade could have sealed off the Confederacy from any level of commerce, the sooner the import-dependent Confederates would quickly be forced to surrender.
You remember, because they're getting most of their shit from Britain and stuff right now, dude.
They need the South ports. They need that Mississippi to run up. And they lost that.
But they already lost entrance into the Gulf.
Yeah, terrible.
So they're got to go from other ways on the East Coast somehow.
Right. lacking the material necessary to sustain a war of attrition, as the Union infantry would ultimately have to attempt to put on the Confederacy at various points in the war.
Yeah, so pretty much you cut off their supply line, the war's done. But obviously we see that don't happen. June 30th, USS Sagamore, a Union gunboat, came into Tampa Bay, opened her ports, and turned her broadside on the town. The gunboat then launched a boat with 20 men flying a flag of truce. Again? What? In his post-action report, Captain John William Pearson from the Confederates reported to General Joseph Finnegan what transpired. He said, I immediately manned one of my boats with 18 men, met them in the bay. Oh, this is when they did the truce thing. Determined that they should not land on my shore, and on meeting the boat, the lieutenant in command reported he had been sent by Captain Drake to demand an unconditional surrender of the town. My reply to him was that we did not understand the meaning of the word surrender. And he pulls out a dictionary. Right. There was no such letter in our book. We don't surrender. Well, he then said he would commence shelling the town at 6 o'clock, and I told him to pitch in. Okay. We then gave 3 hearty cheers for the Southern Confederacy, and the Federal boat crew said nothing. At 6 o'clock, they promptly opened fire on us with heavy shell and shot, and after two from them, we opened from our batteries, consisting of 3 24-pounder cannon. Both parties then kept up a regular fire until 7 p.m.
Okay, about a good hour.
A good hour, huh?
At this point, the USS Sagamore withdrew.
Okay.
July 1st, between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., the gunboat fired from beyond the range of the Confederate cannon. After a 2-hour break for lunch, the USS Sagamore fired 2 more rounds, weighed anchor, and sailed away.
they ate lunch, and they're all like
pew,
they're
pew.
all like tired from fucking. They're like, fuck this, boom, boom.
There were no Confederate casualties.
Oh, man.
Captain Pearson's after-action report singled out Captain James Geddes of Hillsborough County, and originally from Pennsylvania, for his decisive leadership of one of the Confederate batteries.
Well, good for him. Captain James Geddes getting a call out there. Unnecessary little battles, dude.
That's
for
so
no
stupid.
reason.
You guys need to surrender the town. No. Okay.
All right. Boom, boom. We're
Boom,
done.
boom. That's it. They ate lunch with each other.
Right.
The 2 generals.
They're like, all right, you know we're not giving up, but I know.
I had
to try.
My kids, the guys on the boat, they were ready for something. He's like, yeah, man, my guys were ready too.
That was good, yeah. All right, man, see you later. Leads us to the Battle of Glendale, our last battle of the day, and the 6th in the 7 days battle, also known as the Battle of Frazier's Farm. Frazier's Farm with a Z. Nelson's Farm, Charles City Crossroads, New Market Road, or Riddell Shop. What the fuck?
Got Glendale.
Yeah. It took place June 30th in Henrico County, obviously. Robert E. Lee ordered his Confederate divisions of the Army of Northern Virginia under the field command of Huger, Longstreet, and A.P. Hill to converge upon George McClellan's retreating Army of the Potomac in transit in the vicinity of Glendale, attempting to catch it in the flank and destroy it in detail. He says, I want to crush McClellan.
Right. He's like, we're not just letting him get away. Nope. After Gaines Mill, McClellan left his army with no clear instructions again, regarding what we said before, regarding routes of withdrawal and without a name in a second command.
That's stupid. So these guys have no idea where to go to withdraw, have nobody commanding them. I mean, and this dude's on his little stupid boat floating in the river, sipping tea and shit. Like, fucking McClellan's a
right.
This guy.
The bulk of the 5th Corps, without the 3rd Division, under Brigadier General John Porter, they moved to occupying Malvern Hill, while the remaining 4 Corps of the Army of the Potomac were essentially operating independently in their fighting withdrawal. Jeez, like anything could happen. We'll be here. Most elements of the Army had been able to cross White Oak Swamp Creek by noon on the 30th of June, but 1/3 of the Army had reached the James River. But the remainder was still marching between White Oak Swamp and Glendale. Glendale was the name of a tiny community at the intersection of Charles City, New Market Long Bridge, and Quaker roads, which led over Malvern Hill to the James River.
Okay.
So they're close.
All right. After inspecting the line of march that morning, McClellan rode south and boarded the ironclad USS Galena on the James River. Leaving the White Oak Swamp and traveling westward on the Long Bridge New Market Road, the units of the Army of the Potomac made a 90-degree southward turn near the Glendale Crossroad toward the James River, and this vulnerable junction was therefore a target of primary defensive importance.
Right.
To protect the Army of the Potomac in transit, McClellan's Corps commanders deployed divisions north-south in a defensive position along the Quaker Road and Charles City Road to protect against an eastward thrust by Lee's army.
Right.
Until the Army of the Potomac had arrived safely at Malvern Hill.
All right, let's get to Malvern.
Let's see it. We can regroup there, I guess.
Right. Lee ordered his army to converge upon the retreating Union forces, bottlenecked on the inadequate road network.
Yep. Bottleneck means they're struggling to get through.
The Army of Potomac, lacking overall command coherence, presented a discontinuous, ragged defensive line. Jackson was ordered to press the Union rear guard at the White Oak Swamp crossing, while the largest part of Lee's army, some 45,000 men, would attack the Army of Potomac in mid-retreat at Glendale, about 2 miles southwest. They're going to split that whole thing into two. Huger's division was to strike first after a 3-mile march on the Charles City Road. Supported by Longstreet and A.P. Hill, whose divisions were about 7 miles to the west, in a mass attack. He's like, we're just going to run on these son of bitches. You fight, and then when these guys get there, bam, it'll be about 10, 15 minutes, but you can hold them off. Holmes was ordered to fire his cannons at retreating Federals near Malvern Hill. Said, if you can get them, you get them.
Knock their heads off. As with most of the 7 days' battles, Lee's elaborate plan was poorly executed by his field commanders. Huger was slowed by felled trees obstructing the Charles City Road, a result of the efforts of pioneers from Brigadier General Henry W. Slocum's division.
Well, there's nothing he can do about that.
Well, rather than clearing the path, Huger had his men spend hours chopping a new road through the thick woods in what became known as the Battle of the Axes.
Well, that's pretty fucking stupid.
Right. Can't they just climb over the trees?
Who knows?
He failed to take any alternative route, and fearing a counterattack, failed to participate in the battle.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. By 4 p.m., Lee ordered Major General John B. Magruder to join Holmes on the River Road and attack Malvern Hill. The left flank of the Union line then later ordered him to assist Longstreet. As a result, Magruder's division spent the day counter-marching because Lee don't even know what the hell he's doing.
All right, they wanted to get the left flank of the Union line.
I guess, dude.
I'm going to get there so poorly. I guess, whatever. Jackson moved slowly, spent the entire day north of the creek, making only feeble efforts.
He goes in the river.
It's a couple
He's
spots.
like, it's above my ankles. Sorry,
Right.
can't go here.
Just find out, see if we can get a little shallower spot here.
Jackson is such a piece of shit, dude.
Yeah, he only made feeble efforts to cross and attack Franklin's 6th Corps in the Battle of White Oak Swamp, attempting to force the enemy back by a fruitless artillery duel as that a destroyed bridge could be rebuilt. Jackson moved slowly and spent the entire day north of the creek, making only feeble efforts to cross and attack Franklin's 6th Corps in the Battle of White Oak Swamp, attempting to force the enemy back by a fruitless artillery duel so that a destroyed bridge could be rebuilt. There it is. Despite the presence of adequate fords nearby. Oh, damn.
He could have crossed. He was just he's doing this on purpose. Dude, I can't go until this bridge is rebuilt.
In spite of his stunning victories in the recent Valley campaign, in spite of his recent victories in the recent Valley campaign, which we were talking about, or possibly due to battle fatigue from that campaign, Jackson's contributions to the 7 Days Wars, the 7 Days battles were marred by slow execution and poor judgment throughout.
Yeah, he's not doing too hot.
Jackson's presence did cause 2 of Brigadier General John Sedgwick's 3 brigades, which had been defending the Charles City Crossroads, to move north as reinforcements.
Yeah, well,
that happened.
I guess that's what I said.
I think just him being there.
Even though he's doing shitty, just his presence, because we've already established that Lincoln was scared of how unpredictable Jackson was.
Lincoln and McClellan, bitch ass.
Well, at the same time, the Union Army near Glendale also stumbled in this initial deployment. On the evening of June 29th, the 3rd Division of the 5th Corps, under command of Brigadier General George A. McCall, was ordered to take up a defensive position ahead of the Glendale intersection to head off any Confederate thrust made in that direction. Moving slowly after dark on inadequate roads, the brigades of McCall's division became lost and overshot the crossroad, only realizing they had missed their objective somewhat in the early morning hours of June 30th. Backtracking toward Glendale, the division arrived near dawn, where it halted on its march to rejoin Porter, awaiting new orders. Well, at least they made it.
Right. Well, the gap in the Union line created by Sedgwick was noticed and plugged by McCall's 3 brigades. After McCall and his brigadiers soon realized, to their genuine surprise, that nothing stood between them and the advancing divisions of Longstreet and Hill, coming from the direction of Richmond. Oh, shit. To the south, Holmes' inexperienced troops from his Department of North Carolina, attached to the Army of Northern Virginia, made no progress against Porter at Turkey Bridge and Malvern Hill, and repulsed by artillery fire by the Federal gunboats Galena and Aroostook on the James River. So, yes, look at that.
2 p.m., while Longstreet and Hill waited for sounds of Huger's expected opening assault, Longstreet interpreted distant, unidentified cannon fire as a signal to begin the coordinated attack.
Well,
He opened upon McCall's line with his artillery, and McCall's artillery soon returned counter-battery fire. Nearby, Lee, Longstreet, and visiting Confederate President Jefferson Davis were conferring on a horseback when they came under heavy fire presumably blind fire from Parrott rifles of McCall's Pennsylvania artillery units.
All right.
It wounded 2 men and killing 3 horses.
Oh, jeez.
A.P. Hill, commanding in that sector, ordered the president and senior generals to the rear. Longstreet attempted to silence the batteries of the Federal Parrott rifles firing in its direction, but long-range artillery fire proved to be inadequate to the task.
All right.
Damn, so Jefferson Davis almost got killed, huh?
All right. Dang. Well, he then ordered Colonel Micah Jenkins to charge the batteries. He's like, we got to charge. Soon followed by his other brigades mobilizing along the line, which brought about a fight around 4 o'clock. Although belayed and not initiated in the coordinated fashion as Lee planned, the combined assaults by the divisions A.P. Hill and Longstreet would be the only units to follow Lee's order to attack the main Union concentration. Only once. You got Hill and Longstreet, and Longstreet's under that command anyway.
Right.
Longstreet's 20,000 men were not joined by Confederate divisions of Huger or Jackson, despite their concentration within 3 miles. Like, I know Jackson's around here.
All right.
I can smell him. Longstreet's troops assaulted the disjointed Union line of 40,000, arranged in a 2-mile arc north and south of the Glendale intersection. Ain't that nice stuff there?
It's 40,000 men. Holy shit.
But the brunt of the fighting centered on the position held by McCall's Pennsylvania Reserves Division, 6,000 men just west of Frazier's Farm and north of Willis Church. Though the farm was now owned by R.H. Nelson, who cares? But locals still call it Frazier's Farm.
That's why people care. McCall's division consisted of 3 brigades. Brigadier General George G. Meade's 2nd Brigade deployed on the right. Brigadier General Thurman Seymour's 3rd Brigade deployed on the left. 1st Brigade of Brigadier General John F. Reynolds, presently commanded by Colonel Seneca G. Simmons, following Reynolds' capture while he was sleeping under a tree. They were held in the reserve to the rear of the center. Also attached to McCall's division of Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry Regiments and 2 batteries of the 1st Pennsylvania Artillery were 3 units of artillery from the Colonel Henry Hunt's Army of the Potomac's Artillery Reserve.
All right.
Captain Otto Dietrich's Battery A, 1st Battalion New York Light Artillery. Captain John Nerim's Battery C, 1st Battalion New York Light Artillery, and a regular Army company, Lieutenant Allenson M. Randall's Battery, E&G, 1st U.S. Artillery, replacing Captain Henry DeBart's Battery C, 5th U.S. Artillery, which had been overrun at Gaines Mill.
Okay.
Did you guys catch all that? Holy shit.
Incidentally, of all the units of the Army of Potomac present at the peninsula, McClellan and his corps commanders had tasked the critical defense of this Glendale. Incidentally, of all the units of the Army of the Potomac present at the peninsula, McClellan and his corps commanders had tasked the critical defense of this Glendale crossroad to units of the 5th Corps, the only corps heavily engaged north of the Chickahominy at Gaines Mill. In particular, to McCall's Pennsylvania reserves, which had been disproportionately engaged and suffered approximately 2,000 casualties.
Wow.
That was
at Beaver Dam
at
Creek.
Beaver Dam Creek and Gaines Mill. Consequently, entering the fighting at Glendale in a greatly diminished capacity.
Poor McCall.
One historian of the Pennsylvania Reserves wrote of the division at Glendale, most of the men were fitter subjects for the hospital than for the battlefield.
I bet, dude.
Jeez.
Well, 3 Confederate brigades were sent forward in the assault from north to south. Brigadier General Cadmus M. Wilcox, Colonel Micah Jenkins, or Micah, which is Anderson's brigade, and Brigadier General James L. Kemper. Longstreet ordered them forward in a piecemeal fashion over several hours, and they were greatly hindered additionally by the difficulty of the terrain and overgrown forest. Kemper's Virginians charged through the thick woods first and emerged in front of 5 batteries of McCall's artillery.
Oh.
In their first combat experience, Kemper's brigade conducted a disorderly but enthusiastic assault on the Whitlock farm, which carried them through Seymour's first 2 New York heavy Parrott batteries on McCall's extreme left.
All right.
The sudden disturbance caused McCall to deploy his reserve brigade under Simmons from the center to the left to answer the charge, leaving his right flank weakened.
Ooh.
Colonel Simmons, commanding the countercharge, was mortally wounded while driving Kemper back into the woods.
Yeah, at least drove him back into the woods.
Back, though.
Well, soon thereafter, the Confederates emerged opposite Meade's brigade, and they proceeded to break through the main line with Jenkins' support near the right center, followed upon within a few hours by Wilcox's brigade of Alabamians in the center and right. During the course of the battle, fighting gradually shifted from McCall's left, which was Kemper's assault at the Whitlock farm, through the center, which is Jenkins' initial probing assault on Captain James H. Cooper and Lieutenant Frank P. Amston's 1st Pennsylvania. And then it went to the left, where Jenkins-Wilcox combined assaults on Meade's brigade with McCall's division met Kearney's in the New Market Road. Oh, my goodness. What the hell is going on?
There's so much stuff.
So they move right to left.
Pretty much.
The Confederate brigades met stiff resistance from Meade and Seymour in bitter hand-to-hand combat.
Ooh, hand-to-hand.
Where men stabbed each other with their bayonets and used rifles as clubs. Officers even took to using their typically ornamental swords as weapons.
Oh.
Jenkins' brigade briefly captured Captain James H. Cooper's 6-pounder Parrott rifles, but were soon repulsed by the supporting infantrymen of the Pennsylvania Reserves. Okay. Look at the Pennsylvania Reserves still coming in.
They're just over there doing everything, dude.
Right.
Wilcox enjoyed the most successful assault near dusk when half of his brigade, the 8th and 11th Alabama, emerged on McCall's right and found it exposed. To answer the earlier assault against McCall's center, Lieutenant Randall's battery E and G had changed front to the left, facing his 6 12-pounder Napoleon guns southward to rake Jenkins' regiments with the devastating enfilading fire, but expose his own right flank to the west.
Can't do that.
When Wilcox's regiments emerged from the woods, Randall changed fire to the west once more, supported by Captain James Thompson's Battery G, 2nd U.S. Artillery of Kearny's division to his right, but his supporting infantry units had shifted towards the center. If you can keep up with all that.
Right, you can try.
Right.
After successfully repulsing with canister shot the first 2 Confederate infantry charges made upon the battery, Randall's infantry supports charged the retreating 8th Alabama to the front of the guns, but was met by an unexpected fresh Confederate regiment. It was the 11th Alabama. They broke toward the rear and retreated through the battery, leading the 11th Alabama infantry right into the guns before they could fire in defense. Intense hand-to-hand fighting resulted around Randall's guns, observed by McCall and described by him as one of the fiercest bayonet fights that perhaps ever occurred on this continent. Damn. He's watching some brutal shit going on. Meade was severely wounded in the arm and his back during the fight while attempting to rally his men. Colonel Elijah B. Harvey of the 7th Pennsylvania Reserve Regiment was gravely wounded when he was run down by a runaway Kazan?
Kazan.
Isn't
that like the
thing?
Yeah. Wilcox regiments were driven away, but soon returned. He said, I'm back. Right. Supported by Brigadier Generals Roger A. Pryor and Lawrence Branch before Randall's cannoneers could remove their 6 artillery pieces from the field. McCall was captured when he mistakenly rode into the Confederate picket line after nightfall, looking for positions to place his rallied men.
Oh, no.
Why would he do it himself? Seymour assumed command of the division. General Sumner and Heintzelman were both hit by stray bullets in the fighting. The former suffered no serious injury, but the latter was unable to use his right hand for a few weeks. Captain George Hazard, commanding Battery A, 4th U.S. Artillery, was also mortally wounded.
Jeez, Pete. While on McCall's northern flank division, Brigadier General Philip Kearny held against repeated Confederate attacks with reinforcements of Caldwell's brigade and 2 brigades from Slocum's division. On the southern flank, Brigadier General Joseph Hooker's division repelled and once pursued minor attacks. Sedgwick's division, whose brigades had returned from near White Oak Swamp, came up to fill a gap after a brutal counterattack. Heavy fighting continued to about 8:30 p.m. Longstreet committed virtually every brigade in his divisions under his command. While on the Union side, they had been fed in individually to plug holes in the line as they occurred.
Yeah, whenever a line open up, gets more people in there, hurry up. Right. Battle was tactically inconclusive, although Lee failed to achieve his objective of preventing the Federal escape and crippling McClellan's army, if not destroying it. Longstreet's performance had been poor, sending in brigade after brigade in piecemeal fashion rather than striking with concentrated force in the manner for which we'd become known later on in the war.
Right.
He also was not supported by Huger and Jackson as Lee had planned. Instead of attacking, both generals merely kept their divisions on the north side of White Oak Swamp and launched no action other than an occasional artillery exchange. Union casualties were 3,797, 297 killed, 1,696 wounded, and 1,804 missing or captured. Confederates were comparable with 3,673, 638 killed, though, 2,814 wounded, and 221 missing.
Wow.
Yeah, because the most of the captured were all of the
right,
like the hospital guys, but more than 40% higher in killed and wounded than the Union.
Right.
Longstreet lost more than a quarter of his division. Union generals Meade, Heintzelman, Sumner, and Confederate generals Anderson, Pender, and Featherston were wounded.
Hey, I mean, these guys are getting wounded.
Yeah. At least they're participating, unlike this douchebag.
Right. Jeez, Pete. On the evening of 30th of June, McClellan, who had witnessed none of the fighting, wired the War Department. My army has behaved superbly and have done all that men could do. If none of us escape, we shall at least have done honor to the country. I shall do my best to save the army. George McClellan, June 30th. He later requested 50,000 men and reinforcements, which the War Department had no chance of providing.
Right.
He says, with them, I will retrieve our fortunes, he says. McClellan had received significant criticism from historians about his detachment from the battle, sailing on the Galena out of touch while his men fought and died on the battlefield.
Right. Ethan Rafuse wrote that after McClellan supervised the deployment of 3 Corps near Glendale Crossroads, what he did next was, quote unquote, it almost defies belief. Even though his men were at the time engaged in a fierce battle near Glendale, he spent the afternoon on board the Galena, dining with Captain Rogers, and traveling briefly upriver to watch the gunboat shelling of a Confederate division that had been spotted marching east along the river road toward Malvern Hill. Brian K. Burton wrote, more than on any other day, McClellan's judgment is suspect. He had arranged for signal communication between Malvern Hill and the river, but that is a poor substitute. To lead units from 5 different corps at a vital point with no overall commander is to court disaster.
Right, he's lucky that
This dude's an idiot.
he's lucky that Jackson didn't feel like fighting. And
All right.
Stephen W. Sears wrote, McClellan deserted his army on Glendale, Malvern Hill battlefields during the 7 days. He was guilty of dereliction of duty. After the battle, Lee wrote, could the other commands have cooperated in this action? The result would have proved most disastrous to the enemy. Once again, why don't you just call these guys out instead of mincing your words, bud?
We just did.
Kinda.
He said if these other commanders would have fucked up like McClellan, we'd have won this war already.
Confederate Major General D.H. Hill was even more direct. He said, had all our troops been at Fraser's Farm, there had been no Malvern Hill, and possibly major dent to the Union Army there.
Yeah.
After the war, Confederate Brigadier General Edward Porter Alexander, he was there at Glendale, he wrote, never before or after did the fates put such a prize within our reach. It is my individual belief that on 2 occasions in the 4 years, we were within reach of military successes so great that we might have hoped to end the war with our independence, which is probably true. He says, the first, Bull Run, July 1861,
Yeah.
and this being the second, on the day of June 30th, 1862. And this one impresses me as best of all.
Wow. That's true, dude. If they would have annihilated McClellan here, they would have had an open path to Washington, pretty much, dude.
Lee would have only one more opportunity to intercept McClellan's army before it reached the safety of the river and the end of the 7 days. And this would be the Battle of Malvern Hill on the 1st of July.
Which we'll get to, which didn't turn out well for Lee, I'll put it that way. Part of the battle took place on Gravel Hill, a community established for slaves freed by Quaker Robert Pleasance before 1800. Although what had once been the historic Gravel Hill School had been destroyed, it was replaced by Gravel Hill Baptist Church in 1866, and the community remains close-knit today. American Battlefield Trust and its partners have acquired and preserved 726 acres and more than 15 separate acquisitions from 95 through November of 2021.
Incompetent leadership from both sides of the army. How the hell did we beat Britain? Is Britain worse than that? Do some backstory
to
on.
be fair, that was 100 years prior, and we had the likes of Washington and fucking.
Even 100 years prior, the War of 1812.
Yeah, that don't matter. Still had those same guys, pretty much. This is this generation of the 1865 guys are to what the fucking millennials and people are to us.
Yeah, because this is a poorly fought battle here. Poorly fought war.
This is what's happening. The rebels haven't even invaded the North yet. This is all still fought in the South. They haven't even attempted to go into the North and take any land from them yet.
All right.
It's coming. Sad. Lee doesn't seem so smart.
No.
Fucking McClellan, definitely not.
No.
Jackson's proven to be an idiot so far. I understand what these guys are doing here. Well, coming up.
Lee gets better, Longstreet gets better, and then Meade comes in for the Union. He does decent.
Yeah, we'll see. Next up, we got the final 2 battles of the 7 days battles, which is the Battle of White Oak Swamp, going on at the same time as Glendale. Actually, we probably should have done that, but. And then the Class A ending of the battle, which was Battle of Malvern Hill, which we just said this was Lee's last chance to get them before they retreated to safe spaces, which, spoiler alert, it doesn't happen. That'll probably, Malvern Hill's pretty long one. That'll probably be our 2 battles next week. Then we got the Battle of Cotton Plant, first Battle of Murfreesboro, Battle of Baton Rouge, Battle of Kirksville, Donaldsonville, Cedar Mountain.
Tell me there wasn't a battle. There wasn't a battle for almost a month.
Yeah.
Between July and August. Wow.
We got about probably 1, 2, 3, maybe about 4 or 5 episodes until we get to the big second Battle of Boat Run coming up here, which is McClellan's already replaced, and I believe he gets replaced by Burnside or Burns or something like that, and absolutely gets routed by the Confederates.
Yeah.
And then McClellan's last foray, we'll say it right now, is Battle of Antietam, where they defeat the Confederates and Lee's army, at least right there. But Lincoln gets pissed because McClellan didn't retreat or go after Lee retreating. So Lincoln's like, you gotta go, dude.
That's it, bud.
You gotta go.
That's it.
And then pretty much random battles all the way up till a couple Class A's. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us. Garnett and Goldings Farms, Savages Station, Tampa, and Glendale doing it for us today. And in the meantime, go check out Outlaws and Gunslingers, where we just covered the battle of, not the battle, I guess it was the Battle of Black Wall Street, but Black Wall Street, or the Tulsa race riots. Some questionable and messed up stuff going on there. And then also go check out This Week in Sports History, where we cover everything notable in this week of sports history. We'll be back next week for the Battle of White Oak Swamp and Malvern Hill. And we'll see you then. We're the Mouth Michiganders with
Bing Dang.